Start now. We're going to have Jamie's cousins, Kim and Darren Wood from Regina, and Kate and Niall Condon, come up and read something from Jamie's grandmother, Nana Wood in Vancouver. Thank you all for gathering here today for Jamie and Caden to celebrate their lives. And
keep as loud as you're able to be, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you for being here to celebrate Jamie and Caden and what they meant to each one of us. We're going to read a speech on behalf of our Nana, Jamie's Nana, Caden's great Nana. My heart is with you, dear family, and all of you who have come to Little Spirit's Garden this afternoon to mourn, honor, and celebrate our beautiful Jamie and her son, Caden. As Jamie's maternal Nana, Elaine Elderkin Wood, and Caden's great Nana, I would like to share how they are enveloped within our quite large, close-knit, four-generation family circle. We Elderkins, Woods, and Traynors are prairie people, having lived for many years under the expansive blue Saskatchewan sky that shaped us in so many ways. Jamie was the very essence of a prairie girl, with a heart full of love, with openness to new ideas and adventures, and courage to meet new challenges, with her desire to bring people together and to be an active builder of communities. Over the years, many of us have been drawn to BC in retirement or for work or education. When Jamie was a student at UVic, she grew especially close with her great Nana Elderkin, who now lies beside Jamie's great-granddad under the golden cypress tree that you can see from here. It's just over the hill there. While Eleanor and Claire Traynor were raising their 5 children in Regina, Beth, Byron, Ken, Dave, and Janice, Morley and I were doing the same across town with our 4, Rob, Heather, Blair, and Karen. Our families became linked when Heather and Dave met at the University of Regina. The next generation of our family began with the marriages of Rob to Anne Danielson in Norway, of Heather to Dave Traynor, then Blair to Jackie O'Byrne, and Karen to Daryl Condon. I am inordinately proud of all of them for the good, kind, generous, and loving people they are. As well, they have been magnificent parents to my 10 grandchildren, who are, in birth order, Cory Traynor, Daniel Wood, Jamie Traynor, Oda Wood, Kelly Traynor, Henrik Wood, Kim Wood, Darren Wood, Kate Condon, and Niall Condon. Their granddad Morley was deprived of the joy our grandchildren have given me these past 36 years, when he passed away a few weeks after Cory's birth. Not long after that, 1-week-old baby grandson Daniel succumbed in Norway. Through the generosity of our mother, my family, and my sister Florence's, with her children Jeff and Christy, enjoyed 3 family reunion vacations in Parksville, Jasper, and Victoria, where the cousins became lifelong friends. And of course, Christmas, summer holidays, and milestone birthdays were occasions when we would all try to be together. In my mind's eye, and with the help of hundreds of photos in boxes and albums, I see the young cousins jumping on the Traynor's backyard trampoline, in dress-up clothes on my playhouse porch, pretend fishing from a tub on the banks of a Norwegian fjord, scanning the sand for shells and creatures in Parksville, on horseback in Jasper, toying crokinole, roasting marshmallows around the fire pit, and running away from spiders in the bunkhouse at Buena Vista Cottage. The years flew by. They are all adult now, and we have already gained a few new family members to this generation of our family. Martin Hofgaard in Norway, Shannon Wood in Minnesota, Kayla Willison of Victoria, Amy and Williams in Regina, and Adam Hanford in
fourth generation of our family tree, who are my great-grandchildren, my children's grandchildren, and their children's children, began 4 years ago with the births of these little ones: Marie Wood Hofgaard, Parker Traynor Williams, Nora Wood Hofgaard, and Caden Wood Traynor. As we came into the world in the order listed here, so we should leave it. It is incomprehensible to me that I, as the oldest and having savored the richness of a full life, should be grieving the loss of the youngest member, who I held but once in my arms, who gave us so much happiness in his short time on earth, but for whom so very, very many wished was always wished. Caden's mommy Jamie's life was also cut too short. With the influence she had on so many people and the good she did, she lived her 33 years as fully as many might achieve in 80 years and 10.
I grieve for my daughter Heather and son-in-law Dave, who, like all parents, expect that their children will outlive them. How they loved that new little grandson who thrived in the care of his mother, grandparents, uncles, and aunts. A very close relationship had grown up among the three siblings, Cory, Jamie, and Kelly, each 2 years apart in age. The pleasure of this past year in their roles as mothers and best uncle ever, expected to flourish in their future. It changed for the loss of Jamie, and that too breaks my heart. The double tragedy is simply shattering. Where we will find Jamie when we look for her. I know we carry her with us, and we will find her in all the ways she enriched our lives. We will say her name and cadence in our everyday conversations. I will remember her courtesy in weekly texts that read, "Hi Nana, would this be a good time for a chat?" And it will remind me of how important it is to maintain connections in the intentional way she did. We can continue her life's work in supporting individual people by listening and encouraging, and in supporting all groups in our society that actively work towards the goal of equality, cooperation, peace, human rights, and environmental protection. As her friend Ali said, she encouraged me to be the best myself could be, and that's not something you will ever forget, and that is quite a legacy. Fare thee well, my precious grandchildren, Jamie and Caden, your spirits dwelling safely together within your little house so lovingly prepared for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As a family, Mom and Dad, Cory and I have come up with our collective thoughts of our sweet Jamie. Jamie, Jamie, Jamie. How do we put Jamie into words? The underlying feelings that have come out from the many memories we've been able to share in over the past 6 weeks have been caring, thoughtful, adventurous, brave, resilient, and funny. Jamie had a tenacity and sometimes relentless pursuit of excellence. From her impeccable organizational skills, her knack for getting the best gifts, her athletic drive, and her joy in consuming information, Jamie was always learning, growing, and evolving. As parents, you never know whether the child you know and love and understand at home is the same person out in the world. It has been a gift to us to have so many memories shared by Jamie's friends and extended family that echo the Jamie we know. We've included a few of these thoughts in the program. Some other memories people have shared resonated in truth with us as well. Jamie had such a thoughtful manner and self-awareness, and her enthusiasm, kindness, commitment, and creativity enriched the lives of the many families she supported in enduring ways, wrote Eva Bild from Mothering Touch here in Victoria. I remember her vivaciousness, her openness, her support, her generosity, her kindness, and her value of community. Her journey of fulfilling her dream of motherhood is an inspiration to us all, says Abby Aller, who ran the Regina Sexual Assault Center in Regina, where Jamie volunteered. Christy Philpott, who was Jamie's financial advisor and close friend, wrote, "She was a bright light, intelligent, kind, and compassionate. She always took the extra time to say thank you with a homemade card or a call, and she always took the time to communicate her struggle with mental health. This led to an opportunity for greater awareness, and I believe it was one of her gifts. Her Nana, Elaine Wood, said she was such a good listener. I've been thinking about that a lot. We used to talk on the phone at least once a week, and I would jabber when all the while she was a good listener for all that jabbering. And she always had thoughtful comments to make. It wasn't just that she was always putting up with me. Barbara Cahan, a dear friend of Heather and Jamie's from Regina, wrote, "From photos of Caden and Jamie's comments, he was clearly one of the loveliest babies ever. And oh, he smelled so lovely." As many of you know, we've asked friends and family to post their own memories of Jamie on her website, and we've been so happy to have those comments. It has become just what we wanted it to be, an online tribute to the wonderful girl and woman that Jamie was and became. Jamie's extended family, old and new friends, and others who shared her world have built something wonderful with their stories and pictures. I encourage you all to visit jamietraynor.ca and leave your own story. What a life our Jamie had. She was an adorable child, quick to smile and laugh, and always up for excitement. From early on, Jamie was a performer. I have such fond memories of watching home videos of our family when we were little, and the ever-present, "Mom, take a picture of me," you'd hear from Jamie. Sometimes this was met with looking at her wrong or not executing her vision, which resulted in some very spirited meltdowns. More often than not, however, you'd be rewarded with another cute dance or an on-the-spot song. This love of performing evolved, and Jamie's early days of wide eyes and long stares continued to shape into a young woman described as an intelligent, strong, and quiet leader. Her ability to lead became very much by example. Jamie was a steady force, and her pursuit of excellence stayed with her. Jamie was fearless. Remember the adventurer who loved skydiving, bungee jumping, whitewater rafting, hang gliding, parasailing, and rappelling down a skyscraper dressed as her superhero, Mark Delahunty? She trekked to Machu Picchu in Peru, hiked the mountains of southern Uganda, explored the hot pools of Iceland, and visited France, England, Scotland, Norway, Zanzibar, Hawaii, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Washington, D.C., PEI, Nova Scotia. You get the picture. She also loved her hair. She wore it in braids when she was 6 and again when she lived in Uganda. She played the harp and the piano. Jamie was 6 and her teacher was 90. It was an early signal of her love of being with older people. She was a performer, like I mentioned, creating little plays and showing them to everyone. She loved French immersion and the secret language it gave her to speak with her brother and sister away from her parents. Jamie was a middle child, or middle children. She was caught in between always trying to do what Cory could do and always wanting to be as tall as Kelly. Sports have been an integral part of Jamie's life. As a young child, she played soccer, ran track and cross country, played volleyball and basketball. She was a true defensive specialist, but don't ever ask her to take a shot. And found her love of rowing after trying to learn to row class here in BC while visiting Karen, Daryl, Kate, and Niall for a wonderful summer in Deep Cove, North Vancouver. Rowing is where Jamie shone, and she fell in love with it, despite dumping the rowing spell the first time she tried it. The memories that have been shared of her from her teammates and competitors while rowing at Leander Boat Club in Hamilton, Ontario, center around her fierce competitiveness, keeping up with anyone willing to challenge her, feeling both lucky and intimidated to be in a boat with her, and a role model for lightweight rowers. Jamie really came into her own as a rower. She went toe-to-toe with anyone, and even with 30 pounds and heavyweight status that I had on her, I know that Jamie always loved to beat me, and trust me, she did. Jamie's part of a very small and elite group of rowers who have won the Royal Canadian Henley Regatta. She lived her summer rowing life, where grueling mornings started with spirited van rides to practice, blaring Queen and OAR, weekends filled with long rows and runs, all-you-can-eat brunches, trips around the continent to compete, Dad's famous Rice Christmas squares, and oh, so many laughs. Jamie loved her extended family. She spent many happy weeks with her cousin Oda from Norway on family reunions, and for one memorable month in Regina with just Oda and Nana Elaine. She sought out time to be with her cousins, many of whom are here today. Jamie chose UVic because they had the best lightweight rowing team in the country. She made it even better. Jamie was always an advocate. She went to Chicago to stump for Obama in 2008, and in Regina, she was what you would call a door opener. She loved her work with Kids First and thrived on helping people get the services and support that they needed. That advocacy role developed in Regina and continued in Victoria. Jamie was an outreach worker, a teen group facilitator in Uganda, a busy volunteer, an advocate in her jobs with the YMCA, and most recently with the Victoria Brain Injury Society. Jamie was a fierce friend, as we will hear, and she loved her decision to become a single mother by choice. When word spread of her death, members of the group Single Mothers by Choice brought flowers to the Malahat and left them in tribute to her memory. They've also purchased a wisteria plant, which we will plant in our backyard to grow over a garden arbor that we're building as a tribute to Jamie and Caden. The wisteria vine is always climbing and reaching toward its goal. Jamie blossomed as a mother, and this vine will blossom in the spring, they wrote in their card. We will always treasure our memories of Jamie and Caden. Here at Little Spirits, in the Japanese garden on the gorge, where midwives in Ontario and BC have produced a bench in their memory, in our garden arbor, and in our hearts, where they will live forever together.
This one has been very hard for me to write. Not because it's hard to say nice things about Jamie, but more because it's so easy. As you all know, Jamie was an amazing person. Her level of compassion, thoughtfulness, and consideration of others was something truly awe-inspiring. So what made this so hard for me was because much of our lives, Jamie and I were often at odds. We had different approaches to life, we had different interests. Basically, I was a jerk. However, after high school, and particularly once Jamie moved to Regina, where I was living at the time, our paths began to intertwine again. In 2013, Jamie was struggling with her mental health to a degree that I hadn't understood, and she finally broke down under the pressure. I feel fortunate to have been there and to have been able to support her while she recovered. It was really in that moment that our relationship changed. I know I certainly gained a much better understanding of the struggles she was going through, and I like to think that she learned that she could rely on me when she needed help. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it certainly improved. When we moved in together at a family friend's house, and when we lived together at her cottage, I still got irrationally irritated that she would never listen to her podcast with headphones on, or that she tended to sleep through her alarm clock despite it being one of those old-style alarm clocks with what sounded like a bullhorn as an alarm. I'm sure she had an exhaustive list of the things that I did that drove her nuts as well, but of course she was far too considerate to tell me. All in all, though, things were good. It felt like meeting a new friend. I think both of us were surprised to find how similar we had become, our political views, our beliefs on social justice, as well as our general worldview and how we fit in it. So for years, our relationship matured. I, as many of you probably know, did not, but our relationship did. And that leads me to when Jamie first told me that she was thinking of having a child, and that she was going to do it alone. We were headed to Nanaimo. Jamie had offered to take me to Taco Bell for my birthday. She told me that she had looked into some fertility programs, had done her research, and she wanted to become a single mother by choice. I told her that I would support her in any decision she made, but I encouraged her not to give up looking for someone to share her life with. I was concerned that she was giving up on the chance to find a partner. What I didn't consider at the time was how much thought Jamie had put into this decision. It wasn't something that she entered into lightly. Obviously, I should have known that because she always gave a tremendous amount of thought to everything that she did, and this instantly became clear when Caden was born, because Jamie found exactly who she was looking for and who she deserved all along. Jamie's story is one of both tremendous sadness and tremendous inspiration. She is certainly not alone in dealing with mental illness, and she suffered more than her fair share of hardship because of it. She lost jobs that she loved, she lost experiences, relationships, and yet, through it all, these disappointments never defined her. The fact that she accomplished so much and succeeded at creating such a wonderful life for herself, in spite of those challenges, is something that we can all admire. I wish that Jamie and Caden had been given more time, I had spoken with Jamie about being one of the male influences in Caden's life and told her that I wanted to be very involved with him as he grew. However, as some of you know, I'm pretty scared of babies and felt like my time with him was still to come. He was surrounded by people who loved him, who fawned over him constantly while he was awake and sometimes when he was asleep too. So I felt like he didn't need me yet. I was looking forward to when I had kids of my own and being able to have Jamie as a personal resource on children, since she'd already memorized more literature on child development than, of course, I have read total in my entire life. And now that brings us to today and where we're at. The loss of Jamie and Caden is a pain and a sadness that defies words. It's not something that any of us will be forgetting anytime soon. But what I choose to focus on is the gift that Jamie and Caden left for me, which is to live in the moment. I know that sounds cliche, and maybe it is, but for me it really hit home. I waited with Caden for the perfect moment. I waited for Jamie with the perfect moment, when the entire time I should have been taking the moments that were there. So as I move forward in life, I will always carry Jamie and Caden with me, reminding me to be compassionate and to accept what life gives and make the most of it. Jamie had written a quote which I think sums it up well. She wrote, "Work to improve what is, dream and build towards what can be." Jamie and Caden, I love you both very much, and I'm very proud of what you two built together.
I'm back. I'll be honest, I still can't believe that Jamie's gone. I keep hoping she'll come home from some trip she's on and be with us again. The fact that I hadn't seen my sister since February of this year feels unfair and unreal. Jamie and I were what so many sisters are. We celebrated each other, we competed, we grew up stealing a lot of each other's clothes. Jamie was so organized and meticulous that I think would be the first to tell you she did not have a very good memory. I remember poor Jamie when we were at Universal Studios in Florida in our early teens, as her, Cory, and I sat around a table eating lunch. I was twisting a ketchup packet, and Jamie calmly told me this wasn't going to end well, and I calmly kept twisting it. Inevitably, the packet burst, covering my sweatshirt in ketchup. As I laughed heartily alongside Jamie, while I knew she was enjoying her moment of "I told you so," she suddenly realized I was laughing too and asked why I found it so funny. I was, after all, covered in ketchup now. I casually responded, "Because it's your sweater." We laughed a lot, and we fought a lot. We shared highs, and we shared lows. We were different, very different in some big ways, but so alike in others. I was big, she was little. That was clear from early on. As young girls, I was quiet and she was loud. As we got older, I was an extrovert and she was an introvert. We both found our way with rowing. Me, thanks exclusively to her. She encouraged me to stick with it through my first indoor rowing season, a grueling 6 months of training without ever getting in a boat. She assured me it would be worth it when I did. I'm so glad I listened to her. Jamie was wise. I think that's how I'll always feel about her. She wasn't often boastful about her wisdom, although sometimes, if the moment was right, it was impossible to get her off her convictions. She would research, read, learn, and consume. She was so open to sharing all of that knowledge with you. My best friend Martha talks about how when she came for a visit for my baby shower that her and Jamie put together, they had a conversation about Martha wanting to change directions in her career. Jamie quietly and without asking sent her a wealth of resources on resumes, cover letters, and other additional information to help ease the transition. It was very Jamie. She knew exactly what people needed and was kind and thoughtful in her delivery. She gave the perfect gifts. She made you treasure moments and memories, and she connected us all. Jamie has always been independent. We were just talking about how when Jamie was young, we would often hear her mantra, "I do it myself." But this stubborn, spirited little girl really did. Jamie did it her way. She was polite and thoughtful to listen to what others had to say, what their thoughts or suggestions were. Then she would quietly go about doing things her way. Jamie lived her life with intention, and I am so proud of her for that. There's so much that Jamie was that I will never be. Like Cory said, there's so much that we've learned from Jamie. I was looking forward to being mothers together. I was so excited to be an auntie to her sweet boy. I was so happy that my babies would have her as an aunt. What happened to Jamie's sweet Caden was unfair. I am so sad for the sorrow she must have felt when she lost her son. And I wish more than anything that I could hug her and tell her it was going to be okay.
Thanks for that. I haven't had a chance to introduce myself. I'm Janice, Jamie's aunt, and I'm one of the privileged few who got to see Jamie blossom as a mother and to see Caden grow into a smile as they shared our home during the lockdown. In 2013, Jamie and I also shared an adventure as we traveled to Peru to hike the Inca Trail. I usually watched as Jamie took off ahead of me and raced to the top and patiently waited for me hours later as I arrived. But as she patiently waited for me, then we were still able to together arrive at the sun gate in Machu Picchu at sunrise on a new day. It is a wonderful memory that we share. Jamie was lucky to have many people special to her in her lives, and Sue Ross, a friend, a teammate, and someone who knew her at university.
So as Jan was saying here, I got to know Jamie first through rowing. We were competitors at first, actually. We raced each other in singles in high school in Ontario. She was from Westdale and I was from Kingston. And we actually just knew each other sort of as names on rowing heat sheets. In our final race, the Canadian National High School Champs, or Schoolboys Regatta, she had edged me out to a second place finish. At this time, up until this point, I'd never said a word to Jamie and she never said a word to me. I just knew her as a fast rower. This became something that made us both laugh a bit later as we became teammates and then housemates at UVic. As a rower, Jamie was known to be unstoppable and fierce. She was focused in training and she was considered a relentless racer. During these years at UVic, we lucked out with being on a couple of strong rowing crews of lightweight rowers. Together with teammates like Gwen McLennan and Lindsay Drenner, we pulled off wins at various races like the Head of the Charles Regatta in Boston and at the Canadian University Champs. Though Jamie and I didn't often chat or recollect about races after the fact, there are more fun things to talk about. The Head of the Charles did stand out as a bit of an exception. For that year, though the trip to Boston was all booked and our boat was lined up, we realized a week out from leaving we accidentally hadn't been registered. Somehow, we managed to get in on an uncommonly late entry. The Head of the Charles race is a head race, which are usually longer races that are often rowed down rivers, where boats start one after each other and are on a timed course. We started as boat number 11. Through the race, we continued to pass by lower numbered boats as we went down the course. I wouldn't usually say rowing races are fun, but that one kind of was. We ended up as the second lightweight crew to finish to cross the finish line, but with the fastest time for the win. We were all pretty elated by that race. I was actually chatting with Jamie about that race last summer, and I remember her face lit up when she was talking about it. Jamie was a dedicated athlete, but at UVic, I pretty quickly found out that she was also a supportive and fun teammate. That sealed the deal for me. She was also often the glue in various boats we were in together. During crew meetings, she would listen carefully to others and then would often cap off a chat by saying something that would bring everybody into agreement or onto the same page. She was well liked by everybody that we rode with. We had moved into a house together with another friend of ours within a few months of rowing together. It's funny you say her remembering wasn't her strongest attribute, because I was going to say she knew that mine wasn't the strongest attribute, and she took on making me packing lists before we go on team trips. She'd stand in our living room with a smile, listing off things while I went to gather the other 2 or 3 items I'd definitely forgotten to pack. Jamie's resourceful side also shone out when we were living together. On most of our visits recently, Jamie and I would often end up laughing about some of the things we did to try to save a bit of money when we were living together. We, along with our other housemate staff, had a grocery shopping routine which seemed straightforward at the time but seems just so elaborate now. We collect flyers throughout the week, and each of us had designated stores to go to and items to pick up. Jamie led this. Somehow, despite all being rowers, we managed to spend less than $20 a person a week on groceries. The pear tree around the corner may have helped. There was another time Jamie and I brought Tupperwares to the year-end UVic athletics banquet where we brazenly filled them up with buffet items and treats to have later. There was also a winter month. We didn't want to pay to refill the propane tank at the house, so we would occasionally just open and turn on the oven when a couple sweaters didn't cut it. We did that till we received the electricity bill. One particularly good memory I have of Jamie is from not long after we both retired from rowing. We were on an overnight hike on the Juan de Fuca Trail with a group of other former rowers. After setting up camp and having dinner, we walked down to the beach to watch the sun go down. I remember sharing a few laughs with Jamie that night. I remember sitting beside her and a little below her on the smooth rock and looking back and up at her. I can't really remember what we were talking about, but I remember seeing her throw her head back in laughter against the fading light of the clear evening sky. After UVic, Jamie was excited in talking about her various travel plans. I feel like she often planned these trips around spending time with friends or family or volunteering. She clearly had good memories of these trips as she decorated her apartment carefully with photos of them. She was quite proud of this. A few weeks ago, I met up with a couple of Jamie's high school friends at Churchill Park in Hamilton. I just finished some school there. They talked about other good memories of Jamie. Her friend Nikki mentioned that they'd run on the trails around the park during cross country in high school. She pointed out the trail they'd often pop out of. Her other friend Alicia recounted a funny story of Jamie, where she showed up for a class presentation with outfits for her 2 group mates, in addition to herself, always being the one prepared and to make sure that others were too. Her friends talked about the various trips they'd also taken with Jamie, meeting up with her and others friends of theirs in Halifax and Vancouver. A number of girls in their close friend group of 13 had babies recently, and during this meeting they talked about how they and Jamie were excited to hang out as mum friends over visits going ahead. So I think COVID had sidelined her plans to go on an international trip over the next few months. Jamie talked about heading to Regina and Hamilton to meet up with friends and family like that before her maternity leave was over. That was one of the things that made Jamie such an incredible person, how much she prioritized her family and her friends. She always had time to listen or to chat, made time to hang out, and always sent those birthday cards without fail every single year. This was something clearly shared by her family. Both her former housemates, Steph and I, talked recently about how we somehow feel a little taken in by your family, partly because you have such a warm, close family connection together. I was always taken in by Jamie's strength. She would pursue the various things she wanted in her life with steady, focused intent. Though she had some challenges, she would talk about them with a mixture of vulnerability and strength, which gave space for others, friends, and it sounds like others she worked or volunteered with too, to do the same. She had a side that was empathetic and never judgmental, but she was also always up for a bit of fun. Jamie was one of my best friends. and I don't think that hole will ever get filled. I can imagine most of us here feel the same. She was a good one. Going forward, I just like to try to honor her memory by trying to live more honestly, with intention, and valuing her friends and family like she did. Thank you.
So we'll just pause here for a moment. I did want to say how much Heather and Dave and the family have appreciated everyone reaching out. Meant a lot. And from the little visits, the phone calls, and the memories that have been shared on Jamie's webpage, those are all very important. And it meant a lot. And we encourage you to continue to share those thoughts of Jamie and Caden. When you have a moment or an opportunity, or a phone, drop by. It's very much a source of support to the family and to everyone, and to keep Jamie and Caden's memory alive. The other thing I would like to acknowledge is Jamie's workplace. I don't know if you can hear me at the back, but Jamie's workplace, the Victoria Brain Injury Society, has received donations in Jamie and Caden's memory. As a legacy, the team there has established an education bursary in Jamie's name. It will support staff and volunteers to take mental health first aid training, which was really important to Jamie and will be a valuable training for those to come. Jamie truly valued the opportunity to expand her skills and knowledge and took every opportunity. If you want an expansive list of all the training courses, you can check out her LinkedIn page, where is just an incredible list of all the things and all the interests that she had. And I would say, as a beneficiary, we were very lucky because Jamie would often come to Vancouver for these education sessions, and we would get to have an extra visit. So we really enjoyed that. So I'll turn it over to Jan.
Service. Danae Dick has worked with Jamie, and I'm sure she can explain things better than I can, but Jamie was very active in supporting people, mental health support, and also volunteering and supporting seniors in that in the city. And we're fortunate to have her do that.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Danae, and all right, thank you. I'd like to bear witness to some of Jamie's many contributions as a passionate advocate for mental wellness. When I first met Jamie, it was January of 2017, and we were both attending the Women's Peer Support Group that was hosted by the Stigma Free Society here in Victoria. I was a newcomer to the group at that time and a bit shocked at the way one is when one's world has been turned upside down. But I quickly looked to Jamie as someone who was warm, was friendly, was willing to share her experiences, and was someone who could find strength in difficult times. Jamie's qualities made her a highly effective leader, and so it was no surprise that she soon became co-facilitator of that group, and then later the lead facilitator. And I had the privilege of working with her as the co-facilitator while she was the lead person in charge of that group for over a year. And I really saw her dedication and her commitment to making a difference in action. And as I was reflecting on my memories of Jamie, 3 of her very fine qualities that stood out to me were her thoughtfulness, her generosity, and her courage. And I'd like to just share a bit more about each of these. Jamie was thoughtful both in terms of being diligent and in terms of being unfailingly kind. As the lead facilitator of this group, she had a really unique talent for helping people feel like they were not alone. And her leadership included the ability both to give people words of wisdom and hope and a kind of vision they could hold on to, and really resourceful, practical strategies in terms of where to find sliding scale counseling, how to advocate for find the ideal at the forefront in some really impressive ways. When I became co-facilitator for the group, I asked her a bit more about resources in the city, trying to learn more about them myself, and I was so impressed. She had a whole folder compiled of all kinds of things. Again, a testament to her organizational skills and also her dedication to helping people in their journey toward mental wellness. Jaime cared about people as individuals, down to things like remembering people's birthdays, carrying on a tradition of having refreshments at our weekly meetings in honor of people's birthdays, making lovely, detailed homemade cards. That gift giving also showed her generosity in action, and her generosity informed the breadth of her vision for building community as well. Jaime, as we've heard, was someone who was absolutely selfless with her time. She didn't see it as a resource that she had to protect. It was really obvious that she cared about making memories with people and making a difference. In addition to the Stigma-Free Society work that she did, she volunteered with seniors groups, with many other organizations across the city. And she really inspired me to look for more ways where I could participate in a community and I could help. Being there at that group day, week in and week out, was a big commitment. But beyond that, Jaime was generous in the ways that she looked for social outings, opportunities for food, films, fellowship that went above and beyond the call of duty. In many instances, she would open up her home, and I have really fond memories of gathering there. And in addition to opening up her home, Jaime was really an inspiration in the ways that she opened up her heart, which I see as a really powerful act of courage. At the women's group, she would lead by example, and she wasn't afraid to be open about struggles in her life, even if that meant a little bit of messy crying from time to time. I remember one time we were taking a workshop together on mental wellness, and during a group discussion, Jaime brought up Brene Brown's distinction between sympathy and empathy. And as a rough paraphrase, sympathy is, motivated with the best of intentions, but it's when you want to help someone and yet you still maintain some sense of distance and therefore a bit of judgment toward that person. Whereas empathy is a choice to actively connect with someone, even at the risk of feelings of difficult feelings, and sharing in what that person is going through. And that's just sort of my rough paraphrase of those concepts. But when Jaime brought them up at that workshop, there is a glow in her eyes, and you could really see that she cared about making that empathic choice. And I saw her do it again and again. And so I'd like to leave you with some words, a couple from Brene Brown, whom Jaime referenced multiple times as a thinker and leader that she looked up to. And then I also want to read a poem by Jamila, my friend from the women's group, inspired by Jaime. So the first two Brene Brown quotes are, the one is, "Courage starts with showing up and letting yourself be seen," which I think was a kind of strength and vulnerability that Jaime really embodied. And the second is that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And those are lessons that Jaime modeled that inspired and continue to inspire me. Okay, and the poem from Jamila of the women's group for Jaime and Caden. "We are looking for words, beyond devastated, broken. This grief surrounds us and connects us. But I also know you are leader, supporter, friend, always responding, always protecting, connecting us. Caden was the epitome of love realized. You spoke of little else in the years leading up to or the months after. He was your journey and your destination. And now we look for words that combine all the love you brought and all the loss we feel, knowing moments don't erase memories or years, and feeling thankful for all the ways you've connected us. Thank you.
We're going to share some poems from, that people have written in memory of Jaime and Caden. And the first person is Lorna. Is going to, there we go, sir. Lorna McCrae will read a poem that was written for Jaime by a friend in Britain.
Debbie, the bee. 4 weeks, still shot, gone. What's days? Our quiet, wise eyes, a gift for connection, not showy, but steadily, unerringly knowing. The perfect timing, gift, word, gesture, keeping pace with all our changes. A universe of selves, lucky enough to be in your form. You gave me a tiny figure, in a frame, a reminder of home, a call to return. And fear. I remember your day of birth. I remember you found me again in London. Another miracle we had just begun. And Kate, sweet boy, chosen spirit child, I see his liveliness, humor, sparkle in your writing, in your eyes. Truth. Our prairie hearts are used to the wind. Relentless, moving on. Existence would change, big skies. Weeping open, dear Jane.
And our friend Cindy Clare now a poem she wrote for Jaime and Caden. Honoring Jaime. You, a beacon of quiet, determined strength, a keen and curious mind, open like the prairie sky. You refuse to judge anyone but yourself. Surprising me with your inner humor, dry and wry, understated and hilarious. Batted back and forth by the extremes of your brain chemistry, subject to a hard wiring problem like me. In you, that hard wiring problem surrounded a large and generous heart, an intellect so bright it shone, interests so wide it included football, politics, dance, rowing, child development, and lots in between. You lived by a conviction that this world needed to be and could be much better, fairer, more equitable, abundant with compassion to offset life's hard edges. Training your laser-like focus, you committed to that end. Almost everything you did sowed quiet and invisible seedlings of change. You and I walked the highs and lows of our moods on the gorge. Caden rolled with us. We put one foot in front of the other, learning about each other and ourselves, healing. Your love for your family, both nuclear and extended, was such a strong part of you. You radiated with love for Caden, and he reflected that back to you. His joy in light was a gift to many of us who knew you both. I am often drawn back to the many photos of Caden and the light. His short life was spent basking in the epicenter of your love. Caden traveled through concentric circles of love from his nanas, his papas, his aunts and uncles, both great and grand, and his cousins. You are an inspiration to so many of us, Jaime. The loss of you and Caden has left holes in our hearts. You need to carry those as gently as possible. At the same time, the invisible seedlings you sow are moving into the new light. Tender sprouts are growing everywhere to to make the world whole for all. With love always.
Now Jamie and my cousin Charles will read a poem from his daughter, also another rower.
Well, Jamie and our youngest girl, Kat, and Jamie's sister Kelly wrote together and against each other off and on over their high school and university years. And rowing's a special community. They're different people. I think they're role models for our society. It attracts a certain type of people. But our daughter Kat had written a poem that I kind of felt really. I pulled it up after Jamie's passing, and it really spoke to me about both of them and the life that Jamie led as a rower. It's called As One. Gliding along the sun-kissed waters, rhythmic, hypnotizing, peaceful ride, disturbed only by the playful otters, we work together to slow down the slide. Our vessel holds 1 plus 8, yet constantly moving as one. Strength and stamina determines our fate, pulling stroke by stroke till the race is done. The task requires much concentration. We rise above our pain. Hours of preparation and perspiration culminates as we glimpse the end of our lane. That which we left behind in our wake was exactly the mark that we wanted to make.
And now a poem from Dave.
The day that Jaime and Caden died was a very difficult one, obviously for us, but not the least because we had to leave Caden at home, and the authorities had to do their investigations as to what might have happened, and we still didn't know where Jaime was. But at the end of the day, after many hours, we were given the chance to go and say goodbye to Caden before he had to go off to the hospital. In the corner gave us a chance to go in and see him. And it didn't seem appropriate to take a picture, obviously, but I took one in my mind. And I wrote it out after we had been there. This is to Caden. The right eye just opened and cracked, the left shut tight. The skin perfectly smooth. His lips parted slightly, almost a grin or a pleasing breathe. Wrapped in a beautiful yellow blanket in his loving arms, wearing a gray onesie with a very cute hoodie. Goodbye, my sleeping angel. May your eternal dreams be good ones. Grandpa Dave.
Thanks everybody for sticking out the heat and everything, and for allowing us to memorialize Jaime and Caden in the way that we want. So I appreciate it. There will be water and food shortly. As you might expect, oftentimes with these sorts of things, you can't sleep, and so I maybe a month in, after they died, I couldn't sleep, and I thought, well, I should really write down my memories of Caden. We didn't get to know him for very long, just 4 months. And of course, we won't ever forget him, but we don't have the kind of memories of him that we do of Jaime. So I figured I'd just write him a letter from his nana. So that's what this is. Dear Caden, we were so excited to meet you, sweet Caden. Your mom was so excited and surprised to be quickly pregnant with you. I remember that she found out
When she found out she was pregnant with a boy, she was overjoyed. She planned so carefully and so well for your presence in this world. She carefully and lovingly documented the pregnancy, which is on this table beside us, her hopes and fears, her imaginings of your lives together. Your mother was, well, herself in labor. She was quiet and calm. She had her own way of coping, including walking from the apartment on Jutland to our house on Heath in Victoria the day before you were born, when she was experiencing early labor contractions. I happened to be a midwife, and I kind of identified that might be what was going on, but otherwise you wouldn't have known. She called me about 4 in the morning on February the 11th, reporting the intensity of the labor was picking up and she would like support. She was focused and strong and determined as she moved closer and closer to having you in her arms. Your mom surprised us all when she said, "I feel a head." I was lucky enough to be close by as your head was born, with your midwives surrounding you to fully guide you into this world. I love that I was one of the first people to welcome you to this world. What a little miracle you were. You were so small and pink and alert and ready to begin your life together with your mom. I will always remember how proud your mom was of her power and determination, and how in awe she was of seeing you and having you in her arms. You were blessed with a mother who had a commitment to breastfeeding and lots of milk. You spent your early hours and days on your mother's chest, beside your mother in your stroller bassinet, or in my arms, or in the arms of your grandpa or others who were so delighted to hold you for the first time and welcome you into our family. Mixed with your mom's delights were her worries. She worried you might not be eating enough or gaining enough weight. She worried about your jaundice that quickly passed that first week. On the third day of your life, your mom had doubts. Was she a good enough mother? Could she be your everything? Would you be better off in the care of someone else? She'd not slept well that third day, and the demons associated with her bipolar disorder were back. She slipped out of the apartment with me sleeping in the other room and drove and contemplated. She parked her car and walked back to you. We were worried about her and wanted her to have support with her mental health to ensure she knew then and would continue to know how necessary and vital and key she was to you. She loved you with all her heart. We loved getting to know you, Caden. You had an intense gaze and a strong grip. Grandpa and I were lucky enough to stay with you and your mom in your home in the early weeks. We didn't know when you moved over to our house in late February because of COVID that this would be such a gift and a blessing for all of us. We got the pleasure of having your mom with us, experiencing as she did her high and low moods. She was disappointed and at times frustrated that the cycling familiar to her with her bipolar disorder, vanquished during her pregnancy, was back. She was proactive in seeking help, wanting so much to be present for you at all times. Your mom loved you so much. I truly think she was in awe of you. Your preciousness, your daily and weekly changes, your fiery energy when your tummy hurt. She spent many blissful hours just holding you on her chest in Jan's green chair. She started reading to you when you were so young, laying down pathways to a love of reading and a way to explore the world together. She loved to dress you. You were lucky to have, oh, so many clothes. Slowly but surely, the lovely books, toys, clothes, blankets, and other baby items so carefully set up in your apartment moved to our house on Heath. You were content and safe to sleep in your bassinet. Your days would begin with your mum bringing you out to the living room already dressed for the day, at least with your first of many outfits. Your mother tried to fill your days with cuddles and books and stimulation and tummy time. Caden, you loved lights. We would hold you and try and establish eye contact in those early days. You would look right past us to the wall sconces or the lamps or the ceiling lights.
Aunt Trish and Uncle Ken gave you tiny lights on a string that your mom put near your change pad. You loved to stare at these, reaching out as you got older and being surprised and amazed as they moved with your movement. Your Uncle Cory and Aunt Kayla got to look after you too, living in the same house as us. Your clever Uncle Cory, who was present, wasn't sure what to do with you one time when their usual efforts didn't help to settle you and it just wouldn't work. So he Googled how to help a baby stop crying and came up with a screen image of black and white balls moving slowly across the screen. Indeed, you were fascinated by this and it calmed you on numerous occasions. Your mom loved walking with you. You had a beautiful stroller from your great Nana Elderkin, or Elaine Elderkin Wood, that she had given you, and you put on the miles. Grandpa or I, or Cory or Kayla, would often accompany you and your mom. You would walk to Cindy and Lorna's house, or as the weeks went on, with friends at a safe social distance. You and your mom walked the gorge a lot and to the Japanese gardens on the other side of the gorge. Your mom loved wrapping you in the boba carrier and having you close to her and to her heart. You would fall asleep almost instantly. I know your mom loved this time with you. You had a ready smile, a little coy, and I could imagine a little mischievous. When you started to smile, we felt like the luckiest people in the world to be graced with your smile in return for ours. As babies do, you had a full-face smile, so clearly delighted to have a loving mom that you had and the loving family that surrounded you both. Your mom celebrated all your milestones, your week-by-week photos, your smiles, your roles, your discovery of your hands, your recognition of your mom and your family around you as we came into your field of vision. You brightened every day so much, Caden. We couldn't wait to see your mom and you, to find out how your night was, and to see what each new day would bring. You and your mom got to experience a little bit of Victoria. We went to the Royal BC Museum in early March to see the wildlife photography show, You and the Boba. You and your mom went to Bouchard Gardens with Auntie Jan. Your mom loved this beautiful place and went often with her annual pass and with Jan. Your mom was so pleased on Mother's Day. She imagined that day for a long time, longing to be a mother, and to celebrate with her own baby and son. Your mom was so looking forward to mothering and parenting with your Auntie Kelly and to learning from her and Uncle Damien and spending time with your cousin Parker. You got to celebrate Auntie Kayla's birthday. You wore the most adorable outfit she got for you. Honestly, you looked like a little judge with your crimson bow tie and your zip-up pants and your matching shoes. Your mom was so thoughtful with her cards and gifts for each of us. You got to celebrate honorary Uncle Will's 61st birthday. You were involved intimately in our lives and our celebrations.
Throughout my life, I've been a writer. It's how I made a living for most of it. But in recent years, my lifelong mental health issues got up to me, and I had to quit working. And since then, I haven't been able to write much. For several years now, I've been seeing a counselor, and I've realized that what works for me is to turn what I'm feeling or seeing into a story, and to tell that story to others. And that seems to work for me. So right from the day that Jaime and Caden died, I started trying to figure out what happened, or at least trying to find a way to tell my story about what happened. In many ways, we, Heather and I and Janice, were the ones that knew Caden most intimately because we got to see him almost every day of his life. When it looked obvious that the COVID crisis was real, we asked Jaime to move into our spare bedroom, and she agreed that it might be a good idea for the short term. We're so thankful they did. Those were some of the become a loving mother to a wonderful baby boy. Before our eyes loved and general, knew no boundaries. Despite the disappointment of Jaime and Caden, we would meet other in the library or attend story time or meet other friends for walks in the park. There was no shortage of happiness and love in our life. We were truly blessed to have those precious months with them. Those of you who know Jamie's story, or parts of it, she struggled with depression as a young adult and eventually was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But when she moved back to Victoria from Regina, she found a lot of comfort in a support group called Bipolar Babes, which is now the Stigma-Free Society, and the tight-knit group became a huge part of Jamie's life. She attended meetings regularly and eventually became a support group co-facilitator. The people she met there became close friends. Several of them are here today, and they have told us so many wonderful stories about what Jamie's friendship and support has meant to them. And we are so grateful that we have had this chance to get to know some of them. After Jamie died, I spoke to many relatives and friends, trying to make sense of what happened. One of Jamie's cousins told me that in a recent phone call with Jamie, they had talked about their struggle with their own relationship. They said Jamie told them that if I believed that the only way I could be truly happy was to find the perfect partner, I would be in bad shape right now. But I realized that what I wanted was not someone to share my life with. What I wanted was a family of my own, a child. And I realized I didn't need a partner to get that. So she did her Jamie thing and started researching the hell out of how to become a single mother by choice with bipolar disorder. As she talked to experts and did her research, she became more and more confident. And when she had finally had her first attempt at conceiving, she got pregnant on the first try. And not only was she pregnant, she had a flawless pregnancy. There was no discomfort. She walked to work every day until a week before her due date. She felt great, never got sick. She didn't even have any aches or pains. And her moods were steady the entire time. No highs or lows, just a very healthy glow. It was wonderful. When Caden was delivered into the waiting arms of his Nana, surrounded by midwives in his own home, the world was a better place immediately. But when they both died, the world lost something very special. For the record, because I know that when people that knew Jamie or knew about her hear that she took her own life, they're going to think, well, I guess that being bipolar finally caught up to her. What a tragedy. And it is a tragedy, no question. We know that Jamie had bipolar disorder. It was a part of her life, and it was likely a factor in her death. But we want people to know that Jamie was totally devoted to Caden. They were a perfect pair, and she has never been happier in her life. She was surrounded by books to read and rhymes to memorize and songs to sing to her darling boy. Jamie used to go on YouTube to learn how to get the timing right when you read to babies. She wanted to know the words to every song and story she had. And although her moods did begin cycling after Caden's birth, she was working with her doctor to get them under control. And if she was down, she just hung out with Caden, meeting his every need and adoring him every waking moment. It was a wonderful relationship, and she had a bright future all lined up, with daycare and housing, and maybe even a sibling down the road. Jamie was always thinking about what was to come and what she needed to get done. And being bipolar meant that she had to get everything done in half the time that others did, because half of the time her mood would be down and she wouldn't be able to get things done. So she worked twice as hard when she was up. Caden was Jamie's life, and they were going to share it together. We will never fault Jamie for loving Caden so fiercely. We are so proud of the mother that she became, nor will we ever recover from the shock that such a healthy, perfect baby boy could just die without explanation. We will miss them both for the rest of our lives. But the important thing is that they are together again, and they always will be. Thank you.
Back to my letter to Caden. Caden, you can't imagine the sorrow we felt when we found you on June the 7th. Just a few short hours after we said goodnight to you and your mom. You were always so carefully placed for sleeping on a firm mattress, no toys, no heavy blankets around you. no hazards to sleeping, with a soother in your mouth or nearby. That you were that baby who would die from SIDS is quite beyond comprehension. How could this have happened? How could we be so unlucky? How could the universe be so unkind? We imagine that your beautiful mother found you and was overcome by the loss of her dear sweet Caden. We believe she knew she could not go on and live without you. Caden, I will always be your Nana, and you will always be my grandson. You will be with me and with us in stories and pictures. You will always be in our hearts, the dearest, sweetest Caden.
As many of you have been able to see, the Spirit House was prepared for Jamie and Caden. And this house was painted with love by Jamie's Aunt Trish. And it has many stories to show us. The interior reflects Jamie's roots on the prairie. The mother and child bears come from a collection of Jamie's Nana Elaine. The prairie lily reflects Jamie's Saskatchewan roots and is a reminder of the lovely prairie lily tattoo Jamie chose many years ago. The painting on the outside reflects our surroundings here in Victoria, and the dual big and little felted hearts joined together reflect Jamie and Caden. The family will now be taking the Spirit House down the road and around the corner to its resting place in the Little Spirit's Garden. The Little Spirit's Garden is known as a place to remember the sweetest souls. It was created specifically to support parents and families who experience the loss of pregnancy or of an infant child. And the one in the Royal Oak Burial Park in 2010 was the first and perhaps still only the one in Canada. So the family will take the home down, and they would like you to follow. It is about a 5 to 10 minute walk down to the garden. We invite you all, as you wish, to follow along with us. Please continue to recognize social distancing as is appropriate. And we also welcome you to stay or to come back to the spot, have a cold drink, spend some time looking at the memories table and sharing amongst the others who are visiting here, viewing the photos and the mementos.